The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
In the Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, we have a right to life, we have a right to defend life.
This legislation is centered on meeting the needs of Idaho families.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
The courts have long held that our ability to transfer title on real property benefits society as a whole.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
I feel like we're back to an unappointed board that gets to decide who is essential and who is non-essential.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
And for me, it's about a couple things. It's about food security, it's about national security, and it's about preserving American exceptionalism.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Live shot of Capitol Boulevard here in Boise. Welcome to Idaho Signal. It's March 12, 2024. We are live on the air, and right now inside the Capitol building, over in the House, they are currently debating, looks like House Bill 638 as amended. And this bill here is go ahead and take a look at that. Welcome everybody. We'll figure out exactly what bill that is going on, but I am excited to be broadcasting live here from the Statehouse. We have a packed show today. Yesterday, as I flew into Boise and came to the Capitol, boy, there was a ton of buzz going on. There has been a slew of resolutions, memorials, and bills that came through the floor on the House side yesterday, and we've got a bunch of clips lined up, some very important things for you folks out there to know. But first, real quickly, this morning I was in House State Affairs. As you know, we've had Senator Ben Taves, Attorney Kate Hartley, and even Representative Joe Alfieri. I think all three of them have been on, and some other folks have been on to talk about the traditional family resolution that they're trying to pass that would create a month-long celebration of the traditional family here in Idaho. And while I was here, I was in committee, and I heard that they were hearing this bill, so I figured, you know what? Why not sign up to speak? So I want to show this for you. I want to show this to you because I just want to show you how easy it is, you know, to come on down to the Capitol, find an issue that you're passionate about, and go ahead and give your two cents in 2 minutes. And so we have that clip for you from this morning, and I'm happy to show it to you here. I also got a few questions from our favorite folks on the State Affairs Committee. But go ahead, let's roll that now and watch that.
You're up. Tell us who you are, who you represent.
Hey, good to see everyone's most favorite committee. I am Matt Edwards. I'm here representing myself. I didn't expect to testify today, but I saw that this was on here, and I just wanted to say I applaud the representative and the senator for drafting this resolution and for you all considering this. I think it's such a positive thing to be able to bring a celebration of families into Idaho in this way. We see so much division going on in our world today, and it's just refreshing to see people take an initiative to be so positive about things that are so important to our community, to our state, and to our country. And if Idaho can lead the way on this, then that's how it should be. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Are there questions for Mr. Edwards? Representative Achilles.
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Edwards, on page 1, line 31, the resolution calls out step families and says, children who lived in a step family with a married biological and non-biological parent were 8 to 9 times more likely to be sexually abused, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think about calling out step families in this resolution?
Mr. Edwards.
Madam Chair and Representative, I think if those stats are what they are, it puts a lot of us in a position in our society to try and help those people. But the stats are what they are, and it's very, very unfortunate.
All right. Seeing no further questions, thank you so
I have
much.
a question.
Oh, Representative Gannon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Edwards. So, what is the source for those stats?
Mr. Edwards, I'm not sure if you know the answer to that question, but you're welcome to take a shot at it.
I don't have that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you.
Oh, I do see one more question. Boy.
I'm just,
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if Representative Gannon didn't see, but we have the sources, I think, for all the facts on our desks. So you didn't have that, Mr. Edwards.
No, I don't.
All right. Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Okay, so yeah, that was fun. It was kind of a lighthearted bill, obviously, to come in and testify on, but I was pleased to do it and do that. What I want to take away from that, what I found fascinating, was all the stats that are in this resolution that talk about how non-traditional families, fatherless homes, broken homes like that they tend to produce children that find themselves getting involved in crime or depression or all sorts of different areas, and that just happens to be the facts. And while those facts may hurt your feelings, they're facts and their stats are real. And so I think rather than ignore that, or rather than just point out that it hurts your feelings, why don't we get together and do something about it? And one of the things that we can do is a celebration of families first, celebration of the traditional families, and encourage young people to get married, to have children, to stay together, and work towards that. Okay, enough about that. Let's move on here. We got to move to what happened yesterday on the floor. There was a lot of different things happening. One of the big issues that we were talking about was House Joint Memorial 11. House Joint Memorial 11 was brought by Dale Hawkins, and I'm going to let Dale set this up. But this overarching issue here is about what is going on with the invasion at our border. And that is an issue that is on top of mind for folks all across the country, obviously folks on the border states in Arizona and Texas and so forth, but even here in Idaho, we're seeing the ramifications of this through fentanyl, through crime, and all sorts of nasty things that are coming with this unfeathered, mitigated, stream of folks coming into the country. So House Joint Memorial 11 was the topic of debate. There was a lot of clips I want to get through, a lot of clips I want to share, and to show you how this vote turned out, because there is a problem in Idaho, and you're going to see it in full force right here of what's going on in your legislature. So let's go to Representative Dale Hawkins yesterday presenting the bill, this House Joint Memorial 11.
Ask her in advance, and she was much willing to read this for us. In my presentation of this, I just want to say out front that I had received dozens and dozens of printout subjects to print in favor of this, and I tried to spare the good body from much cluttered paper on their desks, but apparently there's much to come from both sides of this. We're facing a crisis in the United States unlike has ever been seen before. And one of the things I would just like to get out of the way right now is I've been circulated some papers from some industries that are very concerned about this subject of cheap labor. Well, I would venture to say that we are very self-centered if we think we're the only state affected by this invasion going on at our southern border. I'm not discussing the wages or industries or how they operate in this state. The fact is, there is labor being distributed throughout the United States in maybe much more of a worse condition than they may be receiving in Idaho. So to make this just about Idaho, I don't think is proper. Right now, depending on what numbers you look at, and I have numbers from all over the place, we have numbers from the Texans for Secure Borders. They have said since the administration has taken control that 8.7 million have been released, with another 2 million that have gotten away that nobody even knows who they are. And I would also say that you could do enough research on your own to know even those who have come into this country and set themselves up for capture have dumped their real IDs on the border before they come in. We don't know who they are, where they've come from. We've seen great groups of military-age males crossing our border, and there's just no desire to stop it. On your desk, you'll have received a printout that shows that from the day one of the current administration in Washington, I think you have 14 or 15 of them, there's 67 methodical things that were done to unravel our security at the southern border. This is a disaster in the making. Every day we get up in this room, and like you, I pledge allegiance to the republic for which this flag stands for. We are on the verge of losing that republic. We are being invaded by people that we don't know. Not only we don't know them, we don't even know where they're coming from. We have documentation that shows that for all of them crossing the border, I think it costs the state of Idaho in tax money $4,880 per illegal worker that comes into our state. That's the cost, tax-wise, per worker. We have some stuff here from people who maybe not think this is as bad as I do, that we have between 30 and 35,000 of these people working in Idaho. I think that's a cost, I have it here somewhere, it's $170 million that the taxpayers are paying for these workers to be here. Now look, I am not trying to make a statement about industry and who uses these workers, because it's broader than that. We don't even know where all these people are going. The number of 30 to 35,000, I think, is from 5 years ago, and I don't think there's any accurate data to tell you how many of these folks are in Idaho or anywhere else in the United States. All we know is over the past 4 years or 3 years, we have an estimated close to 15 million. That doesn't even take into the numbers that we've been hearing for year after year after year after year. This has been an ongoing problem that's been completely blown up over the last 3 years, and it's got to stop. I think that this is a serious problem that deserves a serious message, and any lighter message than what exists right here in House Joint Memorial 11 is giving away the security of our country, and I would just ask for your green light on this. And, Mr. Speaker, I will be asking for a roll call vote on this.
So everybody understands, if you ask for a roll call, 3 must rise. So
Okay, so there it is. You heard from Representative Dale Hawkins. What a statesman he is, and able to articulate exactly what the issue is and what this memorial seeks to do. It needs to send a harsh message to our congressional delegation and tell them that the folks back home are demanding this. There is a Senate joint memorial that is a bit weaker, milquetoast, as they say, that's sitting over in the House now. It passed the Senate barely, but it's now sitting in the House. But this is the memorial that folks like Dale Hawkins are looking to pass here. And so what I want to do now is present a couple more clips, a couple more segments from folks that were for this bill and against this bill, and I want you to hear their arguments here, because I think you can kind of pull threads and do your own do your own analysis on here. But Representative Barbara Ehart and Representative Jason Gallagher both had some fantastic points to make in highlighting the issues that they see with the invasion at the southern border and with what this memorial does. So let's go over to Barbara Ehart and Jason Gallagher in these two clips.
This is a small thing that we as Idahoans can do to say that we support this. And when you look at what's happening at the border, let's not pretend nothing's happening. It's not just the fentanyl. It's the sexual trafficking, the rapes, the underwear trees, the absolute destruction of property. It's the absolute disregard for our laws, the absolute thinking that they can come in here and do whatever they want, being shipped to cities all over the place. It's wrong. And yes, lastly, I did want to say, which I started out with, Laken Riley. She's just the latest victim.
So I'm no expert, but I did go down to the Mexican border in May of last year so that I could see for myself. You hear conflicting stories on what's happening down there, and I wanted to get to the truth. And I wanted to see for myself what's happening down there. There are holes in the fence that cartels are pushing people through. I saw busloads of illegal immigrants coming into this country. Busloads. And this is a regular thing that's happening. We have no idea how many people are coming here. No idea. The good gentleman, can I speak to someone else's debate?
Good job. Ask the question again.
Can I speak to someone else's debate?
You can speak to somebody else's debate, as long as you don't name them by name and only by district or good gentleman.
In response to the good gentleman about using the word invasion, there are also, I've seen it used as maybe a celebration on 4th of July, and the town, I have just seen this used as a definition, that it's an invasion upon the town, that thousands of people come. So to discount using the word invasion in this instance, I don't think is wrong. We also have an administration currently, Biden's DOJ in December of 2022, Biden's Department of Justice sued the state of Arizona trying to protect their borders by removing shipping containers to close gaps in the wall. On July 24th of 2023, Biden's DOJ also sued the state of Texas to remove newly placed floating barriers in the Rio Grande River. Biden DOJ is active in this and complicit. We've had, how many Americans need to die? How many Americans need to die before we stop this? We need to do something now. This is the most critical thing happening in our country. We are being invaded, and we need to stand up and we need to stop it.
Thank you,
ladies. I would encourage your green light.
Okay, so clearly setting up the stakes, clearly setting up exactly what's going on and the concerns that we have across the state on this issue. This is a huge, huge issue, and we need to make sure we're speaking in a unified voice and sending a message to Washington that says we need to do something about this, and we need to do it right now. Okay. Now there are folks who debated on the other side of the issue and really took, I guess they took umbrage to the fact that that this memorial is calling out the folks that are coming across the border that aren't the criminals, so to speak, in terms of violent crime or drug traffickers, but that they are working. They're being hired to work and do jobs that Americans won't do. There was an interesting exchange that happened, and Representative Mickelson out of District 32, I believe, she rose to offer this particular viewpoint the quote cheap labor that is coming across the border. So, and then after that, Representative Josh Tanner from District 14 rose up as somebody who was an American that did the job and refuted that. So let's watch these clips back to back here.
On the bottom of page 1, where it talks about the cheap immigrant labor, I take offense to that as an ag employer that uses an immigration opportunity with the H-2A program. So the H-2A program wage for this year is $16.54, plus I have to pay every bit of their travel from the minute they leave their front door till they get to my door. Not only that, I have to pay all their visa fees, and I have to pay all of their expenses to get here, all their food, everything until they get here. Then I have to provide transportation for them to get into town once a week. I provide transportation and housing for them the entire time that they are here. So it's very offensive to employers in this state that use legal immigration vehicles to bring in labor to say that they are cheap, because they are not. I bet at a minimum it's costing us probably $20-some an hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate in favor.
Gentleman has the floor to debate the motion.
Appreciate that. One of the things that has kind of been going on over and over and over again is the cheap labor aspect. And it was sad that we had to remove the thirst for, because realistically it is that. Whether it is, like the good lady from 32 had stated, that you can't get people to actually do that. I was that kid. I was the kid that would work all summer long, get out of school, I'd go straight to work, I'd buck hay bales, train sprinkler pipes, I would go build fence, I did everything I could to try to earn money, and so did every one of my friends. You go back up to the small town I came from, and you do not have that anymore. It is all illegal immigrants that are working that. Not to say that they don't have visas, not to say that every one of them is not following the rules 100%. I know, because I talked to some of the farmers up there that I actually worked for, and they paid them under the table. They saved themselves money. So it is going on in our state. Whether we like it or not, it is illegal.
832. On what grounds?
When he says that we pay people under the table, that farmers pay people under the table, that is blatantly not true. And that's against the law, and any of us that engaged in that would get into trouble.
From 14, be careful that you don't impugn all farmers doing something.
And I specifically stated in my argument that there was a farmer that I had worked for, that I had talked to, that was actually paying somebody under the table. That is what I stated, not all farmers. Nor did I impugn you or your company or anybody else's that's what they were doing.
Thank you, good gentleman, for making that clear.
Thank you. I also, one thing that really hasn't come up yet would be Article 13, Section 5 of our Constitution. The illegal immigrants, we say in public works, they can't even work on anything within our state on public works. So if we're funding something, they can't work on it. I think that's interesting, where it's like, we're saying no on this, but we're saying yes on this. I think that right there is a double standard. But the last part that I want to talk about was on health and welfare. There was an interesting thing this summer. I actually went through, I read the rules in the off season, especially as new rules are coming out. And health and welfare had one on citizens and non-citizens. And they tied in the federal CFR to the, instead of having a detailed broke out of who qualifies, citizens and non-citizens, and how they qualify. And they just put the federal CFR in there and took out pages of language. So I started digging through the federal CFR to see what actually had changed in there, and I'm assuming that the Biden administration had changed something. The only thing I could find is where they stated, and they talk about the 5-year bar, so it takes takes somebody 5 years to actually be able to qualify for Medicaid being in the state. But it actually went on, and they said, or who are not qualified non-citizens who meet all Medicaid eligibility criteria except non-qualified.
That statute, where are you reading?
That is a federal CFR, so it's a federal CFR.
Let's ask unanimous consent to read from the federal rules. Is there an objection? Hearing none, then the gentleman may read.
Thank you, sorry, Mr. Speaker. Who meet all of Medicaid's eligible criteria except non-qualified and non-citizens not need to present a Social Security number or documented immigration status. That was what was added, and that is why we changed in our current law, in our state, the rules were added the federal CFR that now states this, that if you're an illegal immigrant and you don't meet all the standards, I mean, we have to provide, if I wanted to be on Medicaid, I'd have to provide Social Security number, all my information, everything. But for some reason, we've now excluded, the Biden administration has actually now, and his department has excluded that illegal immigrants don't have to do anything. They don't have to show anything. They just have to show up. And they're eligible. So with that, I'd recommend a green light.
Okay, so there it was, Representative Tanner completely dismantling Representative Nicholson's arguments there. I also want to make a point that, through that H-2A program or what it was, it sounds like she's paying an awful lot and doing an awful lot of paperwork, doing an awful lot of maintenance, doing an awful lot of spending money, bringing workers, paying their way, paying their food, paying for them to live, paying for them to go to work, that the amount of money that they're spending to then pay a worker $16.54 an hour, it seems to be that maybe you could offer, I don't know, $22, $25 an hour to an American kid. Can you imagine an American kid that, like a young guy like Josh Tanner was, making $25 an hour on the farm? That's incredible. So why don't we consolidate those expenses? And it's just a thought. I don't know. Maybe if you entice Americans to work for the wages that and the amount of money that you're spending, that's the kind of out of the box thinking that we need to see in our legislature. All right, we have more clips to come. Representative Brent Crane, whenever he stands and delivers something, it's usually pretty smoking. So we've got a clip to shoot you for that one, but we're going to take a quick break so I can get tongue-tied out of here, and we'll be right back.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
The dictionary defines a pledge as something that you give as a sign that you'll keep a promise. As Idahoans, that's what we're looking for in our elected leaders. A sign that they'll keep their word. Talk is cheap, and so are political promises, hidden agendas, and special interests. This is why we created the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge, affirming the values Idahoans have been living by for over 100 years. Inspired by the only two documents everyone has agreed to live by. So when an Idaho legislator signs our pledge, inviting voters to publicly hold them accountable, that's what we call political integrity. The pledge restores trust and honesty between voters and their legislators. It means protecting our shared values and ensuring your voice is heard in Boise. And that is priceless. Thank your legislator for having the political courage to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge. And if they haven't, it's time to ask why.
All right, it's time to ask why. Why haven't they signed? Okay, I'll tell you one person who's signed is Representative Brent Crane. He is a pledge signer in good standing. And when debate ran around the House floor there on House Joint Memorial 11, this immigration, impeachment, stop the invasion, stop cheap labor, all this stuff was going on. Call out the folks with benefiting off cheap labor. Representative Crane stood up and had this to share with the body about what went on in his committee. And then after that, we'll play the clip of what exactly he's talking about.
Mr. Speaker and members of the body, House Joint Memorial 8 was in front of the committee and had the Idaho Dairy Association testified against House Joint Memorial 8 and told us that they objected to the term thirst for cheap labor and said, if you'd take that out, we could support it. So I met with the bill's sponsor and said, you know what? It'd be really nice to have agriculture behind you on this issue, and they've given you a path forward to do so. So he did. Now you got House Joint Memorial 11. And it upsets me, Mr. Speaker, when individuals make a public commitment to support something, people make changes, and they turn around and go backwards on that deal. And that's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape because we now got video. And it upsets me that the Idaho Dairy Association would ask a sponsor and ask a committee to do something and then turn around and go backwards on the deal. I would say the onion growers did not make that commitment. I don't believe Farm Bureau or the food producers made that commitment. But the Dairy Association did. And your word is your bond. Whether you like how it turned out or not, the good gentleman took out the term thirst for. He did leave cheap labor, and we can argue about whether it's cheap labor or not. But I just want to raise that in a point. As organizations lobby for or against stuff, stick with your deal and quit going backwards on your deal, because it makes it very difficult for policymakers when they make changes for you and you continue to move the goalposts. So I'd ask for your green light.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe just a quick follow-up then, just to be sure that I understand your position. So you are supportive of the idea that the federal government ought to be doing its job?
Mr.
Chairman Crane, Representative Young, absolutely supportive that they should be doing their job, and they're not. They're failing all of us.
Representative Keeley, you had your line. No, you're good. Mr. Nairba, I do have a question for you. So you objected, I think it was on line 40 through 42. What was the objection? Is it the phrase thirst for cheap labor, or is it the stuff on 41 and 42?
Mr. Chair, it's the phrase thirst for cheap labor in Idaho. It's not talking, it says in Idaho. So that's the direct pointed at all of us who have to hire foreign-born labor, because we do not have domestic workers willing to do it.
Well, there you have it. We got the tape. He said, pull the tape. We pulled the tape. All right. So thank you, Representative Crane, for doing that. I want to bring it home now. We're going to bring this home. We're going to bring this debate home here. You saw earlier people take issue with the word invasion, or they referenced someone taking issue with the word invasion. I want to play that clip for you. This is Representative Chris Mathias out of Boise, Democrat, and he took particular offense to the word invasion to describe what was going on down at the border. We're going to play that clip for you, and then we'll just go right into Representative Dale Hawkins' closing as he addresses many of the issues that were brought forward today. The reason I want to show you all this is because you need to understand what the arguments are, who's fighting for you, and who is bringing up arguments and stifling this type of action. To tell our congressional delegation that they need to do something, and do something now on these matters. And so it was very important to get these things out today, because spoiler alert, we're going to show you the vote tally and how that went down. And you're not going to be too happy about it. So let's watch these two clips.
Speaker, I wasn't going to debate this. I'm not prepared to talk about labor rates, numbers across the border, any of that. I just wanted to share my feelings about the use of the word invasion. When a nation like Russia sends its troops armed to go commandeer land that is not theirs, that is an invasion. When a lot of people, the vast majority of whom are unarmed, are merely trying to flee poverty and violence to come to the greatest nation of the world, by calling it an invasion, we are using inflammatory rhetoric, and as politicians and public leaders, we have a greater responsibility than that. So you're probably not going to vote no, but I wish you would.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good body. I'll try to address some of these things. The first thing I'd like to do is commend the good lady from District 32. H-2A is a good program, and those are legal workers in the state of Idaho. And contrary to popular opinion, it is much more expensive to hire them legally, because she is correct. You must pay for the transportation from the country of origin. You must pay to house them, feed them, and give the federally adjusted wage, and there's no way around it. I think in state affairs, do I need to ask to refer to other legislation if I'm talking about this one, replaced 8?
It was brought up earlier by one of the gentlemen. If you would like to do the same to cover yourself, unanimous consent to refer to previous or pending legislation. Is there objection? Here down the good gentleman may
and for one of those who moved against this, it was found out in the conversation that indeed they do this direction because it is considerably less expensive. I feel as though if I had put good wages are driving this, then everyone that was against this would have said I was attacking them because of good wages. I don't think any word that I used there would have made anybody happy. The fact is that we are choosing some economic stability, I think, over the safety of our country. Anybody who turns on the news knows that nobody enters the United States of America through our southern border without the help of the cartels. So I would ask the good body, when we say that we want them here, are we saying we support the cartels? Now, I'm not imposing that on anybody, I'm just asking that question. It was also said that these are all workers and they're all paying taxes. My question would be, under whose Social Security number are they paying those taxes? Because if you're here illegally, you do not have a federally issued Social Security number. So I don't know where these taxes are going. That might be a good thing to know. Another thing that I think is something that the good body should take into consideration. We're not talking about refugees. The standard for refugees, and it was mentioned that, we hope that if we're fleeing our country that we get to go somewhere. The standard for refugee means that if you flee your country for fear, the first country after leaving your country that you step foot on is the country where you receive aid. We have people coming all the way from the Darien Gap. They're crossing several countries before they ever even get here. The funding that must be behind this is astronomical, and I would tend to say that this invasion is being funded by people other than what we might think. There's people behind this. I don't know if you watched the videos of people coming across the border. I don't know how you travel 3,000 miles and you get there with clean clothes. And so there's something going on here that I don't think the people in the United States are recognizing. Look, I pointed out in committee in the 2022, if we just talk about the drugs that are coming with the people who come here, 155 deaths in 2022 from fentanyl. The 2023 numbers were released about a month ago. 570, I think it was 73, 570 plus, more than 3 times in 1 year. What will the number be this year? Will it be a family member of ours? This open border situation and strong language is the only way to go. And it was said that, impeaching the president, that'll never happen. The last one was impeached twice. So why would we say that would never happen? This is direct violation of federal law and their accountability to secure our country. And we should never forget that everyone who crosses the border without permission is a felon.
All right, there we go. Wow. Okay, so here's how the vote tally went open. You're seeing how the vote went right here on the screen. A lot of reds and a lot of greens. In fact, a tie number of votes. This thing ended up in a tie, folks, 34 to 34. And when that happens, that means it fails because you need votes to pass something. If you don't have enough votes to pass it, it fails, regardless of a tie or not. And that's how this happened. There were 2 folks who decided not to show up to vote for that for whatever reason. I don't know their reasons, so I'm not going to speculate, but there are 2 folks that didn't show up to vote. That could have, depending on their vote, could have pushed it either way. Who knows? We'll never know. But maybe if you see them in the halls, you can ask them, hey, how would you have voted on House Joint Memorial 11? We don't know. But that's the state we're in right now, folks. 34 people, many Republicans standing against this memorial. It's incredible. It's incredible. You need to find out which one of those folks are on your side, find out who is representing you in your district, and you give them a call. And you let them know. You send them an email. Emailidaho.com is a great resource. You can go to citizensalliance.org, take action, find your representative, and let them know how you feel about this. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to cover some other bills that went through yesterday, and we might have a special guest, too. We'll be right back.
Spending this money surplus, which is not a surplus, it's an overcharging of the taxpayers.
There's a saying in Idaho, Esto Perpetua, It is forever. But the truth is, nothing lasts forever. Not without a fight. The Gem State is ours to fight for. It is ours to win. For life and liberty. For honesty and integrity. We ride together.
All right, folks, we're back. I'm not sure if my connection is holding. How is that connection holding, you guys? We're okay? Okay, good. Thumbs up. All right. So again, yesterday, we're covering over what happened yesterday. You guys need to know what was going on around here. Senator Brian Lenny was in committee presenting House Bill 572, which would have said that in Idaho we are not going to do UBIs, Universal Basic Income. What this is, we've seen this being rolled out in municipalities and states across the country in very different places. That no matter what's going on in your life, you can just be given money to live, a universal basic income, money that goes straight to your account every month for you to live off of, or at least be a supplement to your life, depending on what's going on. So many different places across the country have many different criteria for what all that means, but that's what a universal basic income is. And to better explain that to you is Senator Brian Lenny himself, and he is here in committee yesterday with this clip, so let's roll that.
Senator Brian Lenny representing Canyon County and only one city, Nampa, Idaho. So it's kind of simple. We have House Bill 572 today because across the country, local governments are instituting universal basic income pilot programs in an effort to further expand the welfare state. So these are programs that really are exactly what they sound like. They're just paying people. There's no work requirements. There's no strings attached. They're just recurring cash payments to people. And these are different than, regular welfare programs because there's no eligibility requirements or limits on how the money can be used. Why is this happening? Well, this idea has been around forever. You can trace it back, actually, if you wanted to ancient Greece. But this idea comes up in different forms and has been coming up in waves in our country. There was kind of a resurgence for doing this around 2010, after the housing crash. And then under COVID, the COVID crisis, we actually did it. And we're still paying the price for that today, just paying people to stay home and not work. This is not happening in Idaho. This is a preemptive bill. I think that's important to state. This is a bill that preempts it from happening in Idaho because it is happening all across the country. There's currently, as of last year, the last time this study was done, there were 125 mayors in 34 different states that have had some sort of universal basic income pilot program. And there's some stats and stuff, but we don't need to go into it. I think it's a pretty simple bill. It's about one paragraph. Like I said, it's a preemptive bill. I think the best time to put guardrails on a windy road is before you start sending cars down it. So this just says, hey, in Idaho, we're not gonna do this unless the legislature, like the bill says, expressly authorizes it. Again, universal basic income discourages work. It grows the welfare state. It costs taxpayers millions. And it's antithetical to a free market and a capitalistic society. So I would ask that you send this to the floor, and I'll stand for any questions.
Well, there it is. I regret to inform you that the bill is having a rocky trajectory here because it was sent to an amending order. They maybe want to amend it. So, I mean, it still could pass through, but there was not an overwhelming support for this bill as is sitting in committee, even though it passed the House. with a majority and made its way over to the Senate. So as it sits there in the Senate, they're going to debate whether or not they think they should stop government from just giving money to people for no reason at all. There seems to be some hypocrisy happening, because the same people that would say, oh no, this should be fine, we should just be able to give money out without restrictions, and then they sit there like they did this morning in Senate or in the House Revenue and Tax Committee and say that we shouldn't be giving tax breaks to families who are sending their kids to private school because there's no accountability for the money that they would be getting back in a tax break. Okay, I'm getting off track here, but that's all that to say, this bill is sent to the amending order. We'll see where it stands. I want you to keep abreast of it and know what's going on, because there's a ton going on. Let's shift gears one more time. This is a fascinating debate. House Joint Resolution number 5. This we played a clip from this before. This resolution would prevent non-citizens. It would expressly say that non-citizens would not be allowed to vote in our elections in Idaho. And we played some clips during committee when it came through there, and we saw who was perfectly fine with it. But it was presented on the floor yesterday, and I'll give you another spoiler alert. It passed overwhelmingly passed, but there were still a few people that voted against it. And these are the people that think it's okay for non-citizens to vote in our elections here in Idaho. This presentation and debate and everything and vote took all of about 3 or 4 minutes, and it moved quickly through the floor yesterday. But I still think it highlights a big problem with some of the mentality of folks who are representing you here in Boise. So let's watch that clip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the body, this resolution is to ensure that only citizens vote in Idaho elections. The Constitution currently reads that every male or female citizens of the United States can vote. The problem with every is an inclusionary word and not an exclusive word, meaning it says who can, but it does not say who cannot. So we are adding language to ensure that only citizens and no non-citizens can vote in our elections. This is something that is similar in other states. Other states are having people that are not citizens vote in their elections because it is unclear in their constitution. And we're getting ahead of the game. And with that, I would ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. You've heard the motions. Further debate on the motion. Good lady from 18.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good gentleman yield to a question?
Gentleman 35, yield to a question.
Reluctantly, yes.
You can always say no, good gentleman. The gentleman yields. Good lady from 18.
Thank you, good gentleman, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was genuine. I agree with you fully that people who are not citizens should not be able to vote in governmental elections. I guess I was hoping you could shed some clarity because I'd looked elsewhere and couldn't find it myself, so maybe you know the answer to this. Is there some clarity that this refers to only governmental elections? Because I guess my concern is there's lots of elections. There might be, I don't know, union elections and class president elections and PTA president elections. There's lots of elections that happen in the state. And on its face, this refers to any election held within the state of Idaho. Is there clarity elsewhere in the Constitution or in statute that clarifies that this is only referring to governmental elections?
Jump 35.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good lady from 18. This section is talking about governmental elections, and we are not changing anything there, and it's just clarifying in regards to citizens that if it applied to citizens in the past, that it does so in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Further debate on the motion. Hearing none. Hearing no negative debate. Debate is closed. Question is, House Joint Resolution number 5 pass the House. Since this is a constitutional amendment, it will require 2/3 or 47 votes or 2/3 of the body to pass. Clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Jump 15.
It says amends existing law. It doesn't say amend the state constitution.
If you look at lines 10 and 11, good gentlemen, it talks about the Constitution. And it talks about it in 21, line 21 through 24. It amends the Constitution, good gentlemen.
Okay, well, the write-up is, okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. Has every member voted? Wisniewski. Green. Does anyone else change their vote? Clerk will lock machine and record the roll. 63 ayes, 6 nays, 1 absent and excused. More than 2/3 of the body having voted in favor of House Joint Resolution 5. House Joint Resolution 5 has passed the House. Is there correction to title?
No correction to title.
And the title will be transmitted to the Senate.
Okay, there you have it. So good news. It overwhelmingly passed. But you could see the folks on there who thought it would be perfectly fine to allow municipalities or elections to take place in Idaho where non-citizens vote. So make sure you mark those red folks down there. And also some of the disingenuous arguments being made. Representative Rubel saying, does this mean any election, like a school election or a club election? Like, come on, like. How insulting is that? You're a body of folks here who are writing law for the government to enact. Telling a schoolyard election, about who can join their little club, their little treehouse club, that they can't have an election where a non-citizen would be able to vote. It's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway. That's what happened. Pay attention to all this stuff. If you don't like what you're seeing, you know exactly how to contact them. You need to go to standings.citizensalliance.org, find out who represents you, and call them up, send them an email. All right, folks, we are going to take a quick break. I have a special guest joining me here at the Capitol, and so we'll have that for you right back.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
There's a saying in Idaho, Esto perpetua. It is forever. But the truth is, nothing lasts forever. Not without a fight. The Gem State is ours to fight for. It is ours to win. For life and liberty, for honesty and integrity. We ride together.
Okay, we are back here with Brian Allman, Gem State Chronicle. He's here at the Capitol today, as he is normally. There's a lot of activity going on. We just had a bunch of kids bombard us, but they've since moved on. Brian, good to see you. What do you think went down yesterday in this place? It was crazy to see all that action, right?
Yesterday was a tough day. I mean, there were a few victories, but it was overall a tough day for conservatives. You saw the public sector unions, the teacher unions, the big corporations. Yeah, they kind of flexed their muscle yesterday and showed how much influence they really have.
Yeah, I'm a little dismayed at the. I mean, I can say I'm dismayed, but at the same time, I get the sense that, like, at least you can see clearly now as these votes come across who is fighting for the people and who is fighting for the special interests, and that to me is a we need that. We need those clear lines drawn.
Definitely. I don't know if you talked about it yet, but this morning in the House Revenue Tax Committee, they had the school choice tax credit bill. Finally, after 6 weeks of just languishing in committee, it finally got a hearing, and it was killed. It was the most minor school choice bill possible, $50 million to give tax credits back to families who use their money for private school tuition or tutoring or other options. This was a very light bill. It wasn't a voucher bill. It wasn't an education savings account. It wasn't universal. It was capped. It was limited. It was narrow, and they still killed it. 9 members of the committee, including 7 Republicans, voted to kill the bill because, well, I would say because they're beholden to the public school system, the bureaucrats, the teachers unions, the administrators. Those people exert a lot of influence, a lot of power. And all the great stories in the world, all the parents coming in saying how much this would have helped them in the past or how much it might help them in the future. Representative Monks gave a great breakdown of why this is a good bill and answered all the criticisms. And none of that mattered because there's a lot of legislators in this building who are beholden to special interests like the public school establishment.
Yeah, it was very clear to see that they don't want anything. I mean, this money would have been taken from the general fund. This was $50 million that we would say, look, we've been having, you could make the argument, we've been having so much surplus, and we've been spending money, we've been giving it all to education, that we are going to take just $50 million and earmark it for education. It's still Idaho's children. There's still Idaho families that would benefit from a $50 million tax break if you send your child, if you apply for it and send your child to private school or homeschool or whoever wants to apply for it, who's not going to public school at the time. I thought Representative Sage Dixon had a great question for one of the people in opposition, who was very concerned about money being taken away from education. That he argued a lot for this testifier, argued a lot for more money going into education. There can never be too much, right? And what he was saying is that this $50 million could be a detriment to Idaho if we don't put it into education. And Representative Sage Dixon comes along and says, so if we did take this $50 million and just put it into public education, would that somehow negatively affect Idaho? The regular workings of Idaho, what we would use it for? And of course the guy stumbled around and disagreed with that assumption. But I thought it was a great question because this money is not being taken from schools. It was meant to be taken from the general fund, which is there for a tax break.
Which is, and the general fund is just the taxes that people are already paying. It's people getting their own tax money back. But the debate really showed how a lot of legislators, both Democrats and Republicans in this building, believe that all the money in the state is theirs to do with as they wish. The Democrats were arguing that, if we had this money, we could, instead of giving it to parents, we could do so many more better things with it. And the Republicans were arguing that, some of the Republicans were arguing that taking this money out of the general fund, that's going to take away from schools, even if it's not directly taking it from schools, it's taking away from the pot of money that schools could then someday use, or if there's a recession, then that we might have to reduce public school expenditures. They just assume that all the money is theirs, and that even the money that we make is just theirs, and they haven't taxed us yet. It's really a backwards view.
It does. It feels like they just want to take more and more of our money to give to education. And meanwhile, there's this argument that the only people that would benefit this would be people who are already in public school. And the reasons they send their kids to public school is because they are rich and well off and wealthy. When there are a ton of parents, I know many families that sacrifice so many things in order to afford to give their children an education, a proper education, the one that they feel it works best for their family. And I would say the stats also reveal there are a lot of folks that stood up there and said, hey, when it comes to reading and math and all that sort of stuff, the private schools tend to be doing a little bit better when they do in the testing. Is that what your findings are?
Yeah, I mean that's what I've noticed, and they had the stats in the testimony there this morning. What was really interesting on that note was Representative Lauren Necochea, the Democrat, said that if we let parents use this money for private schools, we're not going to have the rigorous curriculum that we have in public schools. And somebody actually in the crowd, I was watching on the screen, so I didn't see who it was, shouted that, wait a second, the private schools are at 70% proficiency, and of course we know that public schools are around 30 to 40% proficiency. There she is.
Right.
And so it's like there's this idea that the Democrats have, and a lot of Republicans too, that the government system is the only way to do things. It's the best way, and we can't do anything to change it, to reform it, or to provide competition, which is what a school choice would do. It would make the public schools better by virtue of increasing competition, which as Republicans, as conservatives, we believe in the free market, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, great point. We'll have to end it there. He nailed it, guys. He nails it. Okay. Thanks, Brian, for stopping by and coming over here. Folks, if you want to donate and help support the program, I can say everyone. IdahoSignal.com is where you want to go, but also, where should we go to find Brian Allman? Make sure
find me at gemstatechronicle.com, subscribe at gemstate.substack.com, follow me on Twitter or X at GemStateBrian. I was live tweeting all the stuff this morning, all the drama yesterday, so you You can follow me there.
Okay, great. And I need a cameraman. I mean, we just got this one shot and nowhere to go. But thank you again so much for watching, coming in today. We'll be back live tomorrow with a brand new happenings of what's going on today. We'll see what's going on. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.